Hello everybody, welcome to the March 6th meeting of the Downtown Development Authority. Ms. Thompson, would you conduct a roll call, please?
Micah Bartelme.
Here.
Steve Brummer.
Here.
Alex Deep. Here. Milton Mahoney.
Here.
Angela Jackson. Here. Tyler Kinley. Mike Micklon.
Here.
Thressa Nichols. Here. And Danielle Vaughn. We do have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alex. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Agenda is approved. First up, we have the public hearing for the parking rate changes. The DDA board will be voting on a 3-year schedule of rate increases at its April meeting. In order to speak at a public hearing, one need not have signed up in advance, but your speech must relate to the specific subject matter of the public hearing. Members of the public will have 3 minutes to speak on this topic. We will notify you when 30 seconds remain. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak at this public hearing? Sir, please come up to the podium. Kelly will be keeping your time.
Thank you. I judge the vitality of downtown on how many retail storefronts are vacant. And right now, it's the worst it's been since the 1980s. When your sales are going down in business, you don't increase your prices 50%. That's just going to put you in a spiral where you're chasing fewer and fewer dollars with fewer and fewer people. You're in a mode where it's not going to get better just by itself. I think there was a feeling that all the downtown housing and development would make up for whatever people were coming down, that the downtown could thrive just on residents and workers coming in. But the situation we're in now, I think, shows that hasn't worked and won't work. What really brings the vitality downtown is people coming in from the outside, whether it's for events, whether it's for dining or shopping or work. That's what makes downtown vibrant, has made downtown Ann Arbor vibrant. I travel through a lot of small towns in Michigan, and everyone has boarded up storefronts. And it's really sad. And now Ann Arbor is starting to look like that. They're not boarded up, but they're empty. We've got to make, if you want to build people coming downtown, you've got to make it easier and more attractive for them to come down, not harder. I know I'm very familiar with the financial demands of the DDA. I know that when your revenues on parking aren't what they need to be to sustain it, you've got to do something. But I would suggest you start to look either at your TIF or have a discussion with the city council on their percentage they take out of the parking system. I know that's a hard discussion, but I think at this point it's something that ought to be pursued.
30 seconds.
Right now, the last I knew, you were paying 20%. If you're in a commercial business, 20% is death. You can never make it. So I just strongly suggest you look at some other alternatives before you pursue this path. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else for public comment on the parking? Mr. Haber.
Hello again. Last week you didn't get a quorum. I'm glad you're all here. And but I will repeat the same question I raised at the last public hearing. As I understand, your new rate has the underground parking structure on Library Lane a fixed $5 fee, whereas previously it's on how much time you were there for, whatever the rate is. You're obligated, though you've ignored the obligation, to develop the center of the city as a central park and as a civic center, as a commons. Repurposing that public land, including the surface of the underground parking structure, from public land parking, which was temporary in the original plan, to public land park. Yet you have done nothing to close the parking lot. And if you are planning to put a $5 fee on the parking that was provided for that center of the city, you must be intending to keep that parking lot open, though you haven't said so, and though you're obligated to close it. And I posed the question before, and probably before, when are you closing that parking lot? Where in your fee structure does variable rate parking apply in that center of the city area? Are you intending simply to continue to ignore that that parking should be a park and never close it? Can you be honest and direct about what is your plan? When questioned before, you have not responded. I wish you would respond. When is that parking lot going to be closed? And how are you providing for variable rate parking in the center of the city area, which the library and other places certainly need? That's what the underground structure and the street parking is for, not the library lane parking. So that is a question about parking, and I wish there were a response. How does one get a response? How? Indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Haber. Is there anyone else for public comment on the parking rate changes? Seeing no additional speakers, that will close the public hearing. We now move on to general public comment time. This is open time for the public to comment on items beyond the parking rate changes. Do we have anyone for regular public comment for the DDA meeting? Seeing none, we'll move on. Oh, Mr. Haber, you'll have 3 minutes. Kelly will start your time.
Okay, so this is on the general comment. That the people put forward and developed a campaign, I'm one of the people, but I'm certainly not the only one, beginning in 2009, as to what should happen in the center of the city. We put forth the idea of Ann Arbor Community Commons, A2, C2. And the city authorities did not like it. They didn't want to talk about it. They finally talked about it. They put it aside. We persisted. Finally, we got it on the ballot, and the people voted for it. That public land in the center of the city should be developed as a commons. Now, 5 years and 4 months later, this meeting has yet, in this body, which is responsible for that land, never put it on the agenda. You've never looked at the drawings, the ideas that are developed. I don't know that you've ever looked at the governance of the commons, which is the scholarly work given the Nobel Prize in Economics, demonstrating that the commons is the best way to organize and govern commonly pooled resources for the benefit of all. Better than the government, better than the private corporation. Nobel Prize in Economics, educated town of Ann Arbor. How come nobody pays attention? Now there's a long story, you've read about it in school, the war against the commons. Private property prevails, But this idea of having mutual aid and cooperative relations developing from the center of the city, you've never even talked about it. How come? Not just you, the ones before you and before you and before you, and the city administrator before you and before you and before you. How come? This is a kind of, if I may say so, totalitarian democracy. Let the people vote, oh, very nice, ignore it. 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 years, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, this is the 4th month. When are you going to put this on the agenda? Actually ask people who know something about the commons to come and tell you what this might be about. What are the good ideas? When? When? That's the same question I asked. When are you going to get clear about cleaning the cars off the parking lot? There's a lot of good ideas and care of the community that's gone into these ideas. And everything is developing around, why do not you, who are responsible in some way for the economic development, and economic development is increased when there is community development in public
Thank you,
space like
Mr.
this.
Haber. Time is up.
Please.
Do we have anyone else for public comment?
Please.
Seeing none, we'll move forward with the executive director report. Ms. Thompson? Oh, I'm sorry, we have reports from city boards and commissions first. I've skipped over that. Do we have the CAC representative here? Ms. Thompson, on to you. Thank you very much.
A couple of things, thank you. Next week, the DDA and City Transportation and Planning Departments will be co-hosting a series of public workshops. We are collaborating on the public engagement for the comprehensive plan, the circulation study, and the DDA development plan. These workshops will be held at the Ann Arbor District Library, March 12th through 14th. This board will be holding its March work session a week early on March 13th at the library, so the work session will take place as part of within the workshop area. So you'll get a reminder about that next week, but we hope that you can join us at that session. DDA is also co-hosting the Bike Film Festival this weekend at the State Theater, so that's Saturday, March 9th. The 6:30 show has already sold out, but there are still tickets available for the 8:30 show. This is a collaboration that we have done for the past 2 years with Common Cycle and Walk Bike Washtenaw, and the DDA will be using this event as an opportunity to promote these work sessions that will start on that Tuesday, and also our Bike-a-Palooza event, which is scheduled for May 25th, that you will learn more about as we get closer. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Moving on, DDA members' communications. Do we have any members who have any communications for us?
Just to mention a couple of things. A couple of weeks ago, we swore in Chief Anderson, so he's trying to get settled into his new role. He will be engaging with downtown and others as he gets settled. We're continuing to work on pushing awareness regarding the bicentennial. We're planning to put banners up in downtown, both in the Main Street and State Street corridor. We're planning on doing some digital billboard advertising regarding the bicentennial. And this morning, we secured a commitment from Briarwood Mall to hang banners in the mall regarding bicentennial. And the University of Michigan committed yesterday to use the, whatever they call the huge scoreboard they put up for bicentennial messaging this coming fall. Planning is still underway for some kind of event on the actual birthday of the city, May 25th. There's also some activities being developed for the Commons area for that date. And our intent is still to figure out some kind of closing event that would happen in December. But it's a lot to do and a few people to do it, but it's all in progress. We continue to get media inquiries about different aspects of the bicentennial, including information about our new bicentennial park, and also trying to generate support for the Elks Lodge is one of our other legacy projects. So that's the update on the bicentennial and the update on our new chief. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. Any other member communications?
The bicentennial birthday celebration is May 25th and the Bike-a-Palooza is May 25th.
Yes, and I failed to point that out. There are actually other activities happening on May 25th, which is why we're planning our Bike-a-Palooza, which will be a bicentennial Bike-a-Palooza.
Love that.
Yes.
Just wondered if it was intentional
Yeah,
or accidental.
Logo's already on there, yeah, we got it covered.
Awesome.
Lovely. Moving on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
Make motion? Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
Support.
Thank you, Steve. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Consent agenda is approved. Moving on to special business or reports. Ms. Thompson, do we have any? Thank you very much. Onwards to new business. We have 4 resolutions for consideration today. You'll recall a few of these were from last month and have moved on to this schedule. We did not have quorum. The first resolution is to put forward the FY25 budget to the city. Before we get to the resolution or move it, Sarah will provide us with a brief budget overview. Sarah?
Good afternoon. Budget presentation for the FY25 budget. There, okay. We had a session and a work session on the budget 2 weeks ago where we talked a bit about some of the basics regarding the budget, what informs it, state statute, city ordinance, that type of thing. The most important takeaways, we're not going to cover all that information today, but the most important takeaways are that the city council needs to approve the budget before it comes back to this body for final adoption. That's a statutory requirement. Our budget year is July 1 through June 30th, and the budget must be adopted before the budget year begins. So it will come back to this body in June for adoption. And this is the second year of a 2-year budget cycle, so kind of an update year. The numbers that you see, most of those have already come to this body. We've done some refining and adjusting, but it's pretty much the same budget that was looked at when the 24 budget was looked at last year. So the DDA has 2 systems, which are comprised of 4 funds. Budgets must be approved by fund, not by system. But we do talk about these in system format. So the audit is presented in a system format, most of our financials are, but just so you're aware, the budgets will actually be approved by fund as required. So we'll start with the TIF system. The reason that we do that for fund to system thing is because we actually have 2 primary sources of revenues. On the TIF side, that's tax increment financing. And that financing comes into the TIF fund and the housing fund is funded by a transfer. So when we present the system budgets, we'll take out the transfers so that it gives you a better idea of the actual revenues, the actual dollars in. So looking at 10-year trends in the tax increment financing revenue side, in 2017, the city implemented a 3.5% cap on our TIF tax increment financing increase each year. The amount that is available for capture is represented by the yellow line, so the blue lines represent what we actually capture. And in 2025, that glowy bar, the amount above the variation between the two is about 27%. So our revenues in 25 are projected to be about $9 million, and about another 3 million is what is distributed to the other taxing units and does not come to the DDA. By fiscal year 32, that amount, that percentage will increase to 49%. So the capturable amount is going up by about 9% per year based on historical trends over the last 10 years. And of course ours is 3.5, so that's the split between the two. By FY32, that amount of, the amount is about 11 million that will be distributed to the other units. So one of the requirements of or one of the things mentioned in our DDA plan is that the DDA will do 10-year financial projections. Every year when we look at the budget, we do that. We take the actual from the previous year, what we project for the current year, and then the proposed budget for the next year, and then we project out to encompass that 10-year period, which gives the board a sense of how the numbers that you're approving today to put forward to the city kind of work out in the long range. This slide is the debt service. The city issues our bonded debt. So these numbers are, they're determined at the time that the debt is issued. There's no flexibility in this, the numbers are what they are. In FY25, that 3.1 million is the amount of debt service that the TIF system is responsible for. There's a couple of other things to note. The city PD court, the justice system, when that was built, the city asked the DDA to contribute $8 million, and we've been doing that $508,000 contribution each year. That will time out, we'll meet that $8 million limit in '25. The other piece that's not bonded debt is the city debt share for the housing fund. That was for the Y lot, and the city asked us to take on 1/3 of that. In '24, the Housing Commission purchased the lot from the city, so the debt fell off. In grants and programs, in '24, we began the public art program, which is funded at $175,000 for that year and for '25. These, like the CIP, grants are approved without respect to fiscal year. So any unused portion can move forward to the next year, which is extremely helpful, especially in the housing fund, where we budget basically the full capacity of that fund, which gives us a lot of flexibility when the Housing Commission needs matched funding, that kind of thing. If we didn't do that, it would mean timing lapses between when they could, when something came up and when they could actually bring that to the board. Capital improvements, the DDA participates in the city's CIP process. So every fall, Amber and Jada bring capital improvement projects to this board for approval to go forward to the cities and to the city and be included into the CIP process there. It goes through the planning commission process, public hearings and there, and then those numbers are used to inform the budget for both on the city side and the DDAs. For '24 in the TIF system, we are projecting that we're going to come in about that $3.1 million number is about $2 million less than what's in the budget. That's our projection. Amber has been intentionally pulling back on some of the projects as she can and moving some forward and retiming those. Some of that it's informed by the lack of funding that we have on the revenue side. Last year when we brought this and we looked at the fund balances, you might remember that they weren't looking very healthy in the outlying years. It's better this year because those numbers have been trimmed a bit. So moving on to the fund balance. Here we take a look at the 20-year trend. Housing is the little gold piece in the top. The biggest piece of it, the blue, is the TIF fund. And then we had a capital projects fund when we issued some bonds for First Ashley and William, so that was a temporary fund that you see there in the bright purplish pink. The yellow dotted line represents 25% of revenues, just kind of as a frame of reference for a minimum fund balance. In this fund, because it is not a true general fund, it is a special revenue fund. Money comes in for a specific purpose. We use it to develop the downtown and improve the downtown area. It's normal for this kind of a fund with a lot of infrastructure work to have those peaks and valleys that you see here. Sometimes we're doing big projects and spending down, sometimes we're increasing our fund balance in preparation for planning phases, as we've been going through this year. But the decrease in those outlying years is, keep in mind that that is related to our projections for revenues, our projections for inflation, and increases in costs. So we're going to see some kind of leveling off in that fund balance in those years. Any questions before we move on to the parking system? So the parking system is comprised of the parking fund and the parking CIP fund. The revenues are parking fees primarily, and a transfer out to the CIP fund is what funds that, those expenditures. We did do a parking rate study in 23-24, which we just had a public hearing for today. Those numbers in that study are baked into the slides that you'll see coming up. So the fees for 23, we were still seeing some rebound from COVID, 10% increase from 22 to 23 in total parking fee revenues. In 24, we're projecting, we're at about 50% at the halfway point. We're projecting coming in a bit higher than that for year end, but still within range. And for 25, based on the 24 projections, we're looking at a 2% increase, and that would be the first year of those rate increases. And then, of course, it goes per that rate study, 7.7%, 6%, and then the outlying years are based on kind of a 3.5% increase per year. So revenue trends, nice steady increases. This was not as nice a looking slide last year when we showed it to you either, but again, based on those 3.5% in the outlying years. On the expenditure side, the city 20% payment is based on revenues, so it comes off the top. In the last few years, because of COVID, because of uncertainty, we've budgeted very conservatively on that, and we've gone back to the city for an amendment. We may need to do that again this year. We'll look at that over the next month or so and see. But going forward, we've added a contingency line to bump up what we're budgeting on the expense side to try to forestall the need for budget amendments going forward.
What is that? The last slide you had a negative percent change in the 2026.
Yes, because of the contingency.
Oh,
If I do
that's
the
where that-
contingency out for every year, it looks like we're just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
it's not as realistic, but yep, that's why the percentage is a little wonky there.
Yeah.
Question. Debt service, so again, this is based on bonded debt. We do have one falling off in 27. Otherwise, it's pretty steady, 25 or 2.5 million in 25 and down to 2.3 in 32. I believe our last payments on most of those bonds are in 33. Grants. Here it is the AAA TA. They were hit pretty hard with COVID, so this is a reimbursement basis. So their revenues, our grant amount prior to the pandemic was about 800,000. It's down to 330 now in 23. We're projecting some increases, some recovery there. But we will very likely roll some of that 600,000 from this year forward to 25. And on the capital improvement side, the updated 20-year plan numbers are baked into the structure restoration line here. We anticipate some roll forward from 24 to 25, but these are smoothed out, doing that deferred work that we deferred through the years of COVID is in these numbers now. So,
Just a quick question.
yeah.
I'm guessing you're just consulting some of the construction professionals and the people that do the restoration work on what they see as inflation for those prices throughout the next several years.
Jada, do you want to speak to the 20-year plan?
Well, we asked this basically.
Okay.
Yeah, because we've seen such growth.
Right.
So the 20-year plan update includes dollars, all in 2023 dollars. One thing that we're working to refine is how to reflect those changes in the outer years. We tried a couple different models and they just didn't feel confident with where the numbers were landing. But because we update the 20-year plan every 2 or 3 years, we're kind of catching up with that along the way.
Okay.
Look at fund balance. So in the parking system, fund balance includes the parking CIP fund in the orange, and the green is the parking fund. Again, 25% of revenues for the yellow line for a sense of reference. Last year, this slide was looking pretty scary with the new parking rates in there and which have smooth out the additional revenues, and the 20-year plan for the restoration also smoothing out. The fund balance is in a better place. So this meets our goal of that fiscally sound system that we knew we needed to do some work to get there in our projections last year.
Sarah, this is assuming the increases are adopted.
It is, yes. Yep. Just a quick note on process. We're currently in that orange box, the DDA board putting the budget forward to City Council. From here, Maura will present at the City Council work session, and then it will go through the city's budget process and come back to the board in June, as we mentioned. So when the budget goes to the city, it goes to the city in the city's format, and it's a bit different than ours. When we present financials to you, we customize those for kind of how it makes sense. We break out the city 20%, for instance, because it's a big piece of our budget. The city's format is for the whole city. It's all consistent throughout. So a couple of things to note, the prior year's surplus is for any funds where we're spending down fund balance. The city includes those as revenue. We don't on our side, so that's a significant difference in the budget columns. And also the transfers in. Again, when we look at the system format, we take those transfers from one fund to the other out. Here, of course, in the budget, we have to approve those, both on the revenue side and the expenditure side. So this is how the city will see it, and this is how it'll go into their budget book by category and then also by fund. And that's what we'll be putting forward. Questions?
So I'll just mention by way of process, the session that Maura will speak at on Monday coming is more informal. It's just for council members to ask questions, to hear information. I will present the actual budget to council on the night of April 15th, and the budget votes will all be taken during the month of May, and so that we can load up and get ready for July 1 start.
I've asked this before, and I'm sorry if you've given me a more clear answer. But as we're talking about planning and things like that, when do we have the conversations around like if we want to push for removing or increasing that cap? Like we talked about this in circles of like, and it's like, when do we
Well, this body's one time to engage city council is your annual
Yeah.
conversation, which we didn't have a year ago.
Yeah.
But we just had. But when we're both together, that is a time for you to have the discussion when all members are present. Otherwise, it's just a series of one-off conversations. Which,
And maybe that's
which is
what I feel.
okay, but that's a much bigger conversation. And I'm not trying to speak for Maura, she can say whatever
No,
she
I
wants
just
to
feel like
say.
I get that answer. They're like, that's a big
Yeah,
deal. And I'm
yeah.
like, okay, when do we start talking about the big deal?
Right, and I agree with what Milton said, and I think that this coming year is gonna give us that opportunity in other ways than just the work session, because we'll be working on our development plan. We will be keeping city council informed on that plan. That development plan is gonna be informed by all of the planning efforts that are happening now. So there are gonna be recommendations coming out of the current planning efforts that are gonna show projects that the DDA could invest in, if the DDA has the funds to invest. So I think that conversation over the course of this year is going to happen somewhat naturally.
Okay.
If I could, much of this has been predicated on wrapping up some of these studies and getting
Yeah,
this
I
data.
remember
So our financial position is unknown until we adopt some of the, or not, changes, et cetera. We've got the circulation study, we've got these master planning efforts. Like Maura said, there's conversations to be had about what the DDA's role is in downtown and assisting with some services. What our role is for these desired capital projects that are going to be coming out of this planning effort, and measuring that against our ability to do any of that, because we are limited in our funding currently. So that's kind of where we know what is desired to be done, and we discuss what our limits are in terms of our ability to contribute to said plans.
Okay.
So
And
some of this has been waiting on these things to wrap up, so we know a little bit more about where we're at and expect it to be.
But it sounds like the most likely place where we can have a more strategic conversation is next year's meeting, since we just did this year's. And
Yeah.
we'll be sprinkling in supporting evidence and data throughout this coming year.
But it will be greatly assisted by the monthly visits that
Yeah.
Maura pays. We just started allowing Maura to come to the meetings. That wasn't happening before.
You're in the club now.
So she comes once a month with an update. She can talk about whatever she wants to, but because of the structure of, we're all about bureaucracy. No one asks her any questions. She just says whatever she says and sits down. There's no discussion.
Yeah.
But to have a discussion about it, it's the meeting I'm talking about,
Yeah,
where
okay.
everybody's present.
All right, sorry if I'm beating
No,
up.
can I add one
Yeah.
other thing? A resolution that is before you today is for the consultant team that we would like to work with on our development plan. Built into the scope of that work, we have many, many meetings. Many of those meetings are with council. We have incorporated, we know that we're gonna have to have these conversations. So that's kind of part of our planning process, knowing that we need to have that opportunity.
Okay.
Thank you for the budget presentation. You're very transparent, and it's appreciated.
What, no weird questions? Come on.
No,
I was
no.
gonna say thank you.
Any other questions for Sarah, Maura, or on the budget presentation?
No, thank you so much, Maura.
Well, I'm going to move forward the resolution to put forward this budget to City Council. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Michael. All in favor of the resolution to put forward the budget FY25 to Council, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Next up, we have two resolutions for engineering services for maintenance and restoration work and the parking structures. Those of you who have been following along, these were on last month's agenda. We were unable to get to them. First is a resolution to approve a professional services agreement with Fishbeck for engineering and parking consulting services for FY25 parking structure restoration. Do I have a motion to do it?
So moved.
Thank you, sir. And a second?
Support.
Thank you. Do I have any discussion around this? This is for necessary repairs and restoration work. Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Second up is a resolution to approve a professional services agreement with Fishbeck for engineering and parking consulting services for the FY25 parking structure fencing project. I will be delighted to move this forward. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. The amount of the contract, $78,500, is based on project scope and the estimated construction timeline for $1,140,000 in fencing work, including enhanced rooftop fencing at 6 facilities. All in favor? Or, excuse me, do we have any discussion, questions?
Just a little, and I know this is a delicate topic. DDA has been committed to securing these structures, investing the money to do so. There are other groups that are doing similar to facilities that they own. I'm sort of making a comment, not as a DDA board member, but just from the city administrator, city government perspective on what we see in terms of experience with this. And I know it's upsetting sometimes when we say it, but the reality of what we have seen is when a person has made a decision that they're going to end their life, they climb over the fence. They go through the barrier. And sometimes there's been comments that the DDA isn't doing enough, and I'm trying to sort of balance that sentiment because we've seen it over and over again. We've had people jump off the railroad bridge. I mean, you put a fence up, they go over the fence. It's not a 100% foolproof measure. So I wouldn't want people to have the idea that, well, because we did that, nothing will ever happen at a garage again, because that would not be true. Unfortunately, it wouldn't. So I'm certainly supportive of it. But if someone wanted to come and say, well, y'all didn't do enough, well, we did what we could, but it's hard to deter a person from a budgetary measure when they made the decision that they made. It just is. So that's my only comment.
Point taken. I'm excited about this one because it does replace what was temporary fencing and give a slight bit of additional deterrent, but you're very right, Melvin. If someone is determined to scale and go through the fence, they will probably find a way.
It's a small thing, but are there two different numbers on there? 78,500, and then below it's just 78,000. Just getting that out.
Typo.
Should we make an amendment on that? Do we need to make an amendment on that?
Which number is right?
78's in there twice.
Okay.
75. It's 78.5 is accurate.
78.5.
I'd like to propose an amendment to the resolution.
I'll second that amendment. All in favor of amending the resolution to read $78,500 across the board, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The amendment passes. Is there any more discussion before we vote on the resolution? Okay. All in favor of the resolution to approve the Fishbeck contract for parking lot or parking structure fencing, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. The final resolution we have before us today to the discussion we had earlier, Theresa, is to approve a contract with Interface Studios for the DDA development and TIF plan services. Do I have a motion to move this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you much. Moving on to discussion, the Interface Studios team was selected through a competitive bid process for work on the city's comprehensive plan. To continue to align the DDA work with city goals and initiatives, DDA staff recommend utilizing this process and consult the team for the DDA development plan work. The contract amount is not to exceed $180,000. Open for discussion. This is the same team that is involved with the city's comprehensive plan, so we have synergies, and no communication issues across multiple development teams. They've done some great work that we've looked at from some other municipalities and DDAs. Questions, discussion?
I appreciated the overview during the work session about this, so I'm looking forward to it.
Hearing no more, we'll take it to a vote. All in favor of approving the resolution to engage with Interface Studios, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The resolution passes. Moving on. I don't believe we have any unfinished business, Ms. Thompson? No. Communications. There are several communications included in your packet for your perusing pleasure. No action is required. We have staff reports and some public correspondence for board. Those will be attached on your agenda document. Moving on, we have our closing public comment. Do we have anyone who would like to comment at this time? We will have 3 minutes. Seeing none, we'll move on. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. We are adjourned.